Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The gentleman from California reserves a point of order. The clerk will report.
Amendment to the amendment in the
Without objection, the
nature
amendment will be considered as read. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, it's been reported that former President Trump has been livid about the fact that when he left office, he was not offered a book deal. And perhaps that is the reason why, or that's one of the reasons why we're here today. Republicans concerned about Joe Biden's book deal ignores that it is a common practice for public officials and political leaders to publish memoirs that detail their experiences and define their legacies. Numerous Trump administration officials have done so, including Jared Kushner, which makes it even more unpalatable for our dear former president. On June 16, 2021, Broadside Books, an imprint of HarperCollins, announced that it had acquired a book by Jared Kushner. And at the same time of that acquisition, Broadside described Kushner as, quote, playing a central role in the administration's most significant accomplishments, end quote, and said that his book would be definitive, thorough, and thoroughly recounting of the administration and the truth about what happened behind closed doors. Like President Biden, Kushner's memoir was written with the help of a ghostwriter who is identified in the book's acknowledgments as speechwriter Brittany Baldwin. Breaking History, which was published on August 23, 2022, paints Kushner as, quote, one of the most consequential presidential advisors in modern history, end quote, and, quote, takes readers inside debates in the Oval Office, double crosses at the United Nations, tense meetings in Arab palaces, high-stakes negotiations, and the daily barrage of leaks, false allegations, and investigations, and West Wing infighting, end quote. Members of Congress have long raised concerns about the troubling overlap between Jared Kushner's Middle Eastern business interest and U.S. foreign policy. Less than 6 months after Kushner left his role as White House advisor, his private equity firm, known as Affinity Partners, which he has no background in private equity, but still set up this business. And that business received a $2 billion investment from Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, which is a sovereign wealth fund controlled by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The circumstances surrounding the PIF's $2 billion investment in Affinity invite questions about whether the investment was a reward for official actions Kushner took to benefit the Saudi government during his time in the White House, including preventing accountability for the Saudi government ordering the brutal murder of journalist and American citizen Jamal Khashoggi. Members of this committee have made no secret of their desire to investigate Kushner's business dealings with Middle Eastern states, including Saudi Arabia, and materials created during the process of writing his memoir, including the ghostwriter's notes and audio recordings, could contain evidence that is relevant to such an investigation. And to that end, this committee intends to issue a subpoena to Kushner's ghostwriter for all materials related to Jared Kushner's memoir. There are significant financial transparency issues related to Kushner's memoir. Unlike President Biden, who publicly disclosed how much he has made through book deals, financial terms for Kushner's memoir have not been shared with the public. Moreover, campaign finance records and public reporting indicate that Save America Joint Fundraising Committee, which raises money for 2 political action committees associated with Trump, spent $158,000 buying copies of Kushner's book from Books A Million. These purchases provided direct financial and reputational benefits to Kushner and may have helped him land the #1 spot on the New York bestsellers list. Mr. Chairman, if the contempt report is going to reference President Biden's book deal, it should have this information, this additional information added in for context, and for that reason, I offer this amendment. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Point of orders was withdrawn. Question occurs on the amendment from the gentleman from Georgia. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. Recorded vote being requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Jordan?
No.
Mr. Jordan votes no. Mr. Issa? Mr. Gates? Mr. Biggs? Mr. Biggs votes no. Mr. McClintock? Mr. McClintock votes no. Mr. Tiffany? Mr. Massey? Mr. Roy? Mr. Bishop? Mr. Bishop votes no. Ms. Spartz? Mr. Fitzgerald? Mr. Fitzgerald votes no. Mr. Bentz? Mr. Bentz votes no. Mr. Klein? Mr. Armstrong? Mr. Gooden? Mr. Van Drew? Mr. Van Drew votes no. Mr. Nels? Mr. Moore? Mr. Kiley? Ms. Hageman? No. Ms. Hageman votes no. Mr. Moran? No. Mr. Moran votes no. Ms. Lee? Mr. Hunt? Mr. Fry? No. Mr. Fry votes no. Mr. Ruley? No. Mr. Ruley votes no. Mr. Nadler? Ms. Lofgren? Aye. Ms. Lofgren votes aye. Ms. Jackson Lee? Mr. Cohen? Mr. Johnson? Aye. Mr. Johnson votes aye. Mr. Schiff? Mr. Swalwell? Mr. Liu? Ms. Jayapal? Mr. Correa? Ms. Scanlon? Ms. Scanlon votes aye. Mr. Neguse? Ms. McBath? Ms. Dean? Ms. Escobar? Ms. Escobar votes aye. Ms. Ross? Ms. Ross votes aye. Ms. Bush? Mr. Ivy? Mr. Ivy votes aye. Ms. Ballant? Ms. Ballant votes aye.
Clerk. Mr. Liu?
Mr. Liu, you're not recorded. Mr. Liu votes aye.
Clerk will report.
Mr. Chairman, there are 8 ayes and 11 noes.
The amendment is not adopted. Who seeks recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will report. The gentleman from California reserves a point of order.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to the
Without objection, the
committee.
amendment will be considered as read. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized to explain the amendment.